Hello and welcome to Qtr Time podcast in partnership with Lovell Netball. I'm Lucy G.
And I'm Lucy P. And we're here to bring you all the netball goodness you never knew you needed.
At Qtr Time Pod, we are big advocates of being open when talking about periods. And so we're really pleased to say that our friends at Modibody have collaborated with Puma to launch a new range of active period underwear to keep you free from leaks, sweat and discharge when you work out, no matter the time of the month.
This active period underwear collection comes in 3 styles and a range of sizes, absorbencies and 2 colourways. If you're passionate about the planet, then you'll be pleased to know they are made from 82% recycled material.
As sponsors of the podcast, Modibody are delighted to offer our listeners an exclusive 15% discount on the collection at modibody.com if you use the code Qtr Modibody. You can find all the T's and C's and the code in the podcast notes.
Go check it out. Hello and welcome to episode 6. My goodness, Luce, we are steaming ahead in the Netball Super League season, aren't we? And we've got the ANZ up and running. The SSN starts this weekend. It's all happening. It's crazy, isn't it?
I know, but this is what we've been waiting for, all this netball spoiled for choice. It's amazing.
Yeah, although I do feel like I potentially need to take a sabbatical until the end of June in order to be able to watch everything.
Yeah, 100%. And then you think World Cup's just around the corner.
Huge year of netball. Yeah, we love it though, don't we, Luce?
For sure.
So what's coming up on today's episode?
Okay, so first off, we're going to have our 3-word summaries for the only 3 games in round 6 this week. And then, of course, we'll have our game of the round and our player of the round. We've then got a really special conversation for you guys. I know, we often speak to, I suppose, what you'd call the household names in netball, like your Tracy Nevilles or your Tamsin Greenways, etc. But we also think that it's really, really important to promote, I suppose, the people behind the scenes who do kind of so much hard work and potentially don't get recognised or rewarded in the same way. So this week, we're chatting to England Rose's team manager, Paul Dring, all about what his job entails, both logistically and holistically. Getting to hear some of his funny stories, his best and worst moments in the role, and so much more. So I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, me too. I think it's really interesting to speak to someone who you don't usually hear from, but also whose face you've seen around a bit. And Paul's a good laugh as well, isn't he?
Yeah, Paul or Martin? You'll find out later.
Amazing. So let's dive straight in with our 3-word summaries for round 6. So yes, just 3 games in this round, as you mentioned there, Luce. On Friday, we had Team Bath versus Surrey Storm, with Bath unfortunately losing out quite heavily, 54-80. And for this game, I said, finding their stride. Mm-hmm. Bath were well on track for their highest 3-quarter time score of the season in this game, but the wheels just came off a bit in quarter 4, and it ended up being 25-9 in that final quarter in favour of Storm, hence the really significant scoreline. Although Bath rotated combinations, they were actually finding some quite nice passage into their shooters in the first half of this game. But Storm managed to pick up 25 turnovers to Bath 7 and 19 deflection to Bath 10. They just weren't really winning enough ball to get a foothold in this game, but it was actually quite good to see some of their connections really gelling a bit more. And I think that's what I meant about finding their stride. They're starting to get into the groove. It was a Super League debut for Qtr, who is obviously the new signing for Team Bath this season. And it'll be interesting to see which defensive combination Bath settle on, as it does seem a bit up in the air at the moment.
Yeah, I think in defence and attack, there's just so many different combinations being tested. You don't really know which way they're going to go game by game. So yeah, interesting for sure. And then Sunday's game was Leeds Rhinos versus Manchester Thunder, with Thunder coming out on top 67-52. And I've said pretty good going. There wasn't really much in this game besides a disastrous third quarter for Rhinos, which they lost 22-13. But the other three quarters were pretty decent from them. There's only 4 goals being the biggest margin. It's just that elusive consistency that teams really need to be able to put out against these top sides. And that was really Rhino's undoing in this game. It was quite whistle heavy with 65 and 63 penalties apiece. But by the sounds of it, the scoreline just it doesn't really do justice to this game, as Rhinos, they dominated the deflections. They only had 4 unforced errors and they had 1 more intercept than Thunder, but yet still managed to lose by 15 goals. So I bet it was an interesting one to be there in person.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting. In those 2 games, there was obviously just that one quarter where it really got away from the losing team. And if they could tidy up that, or maybe it's actually thinking about what the winning team is doing so well to capitalize and really just steamroller in a particular quarter. I think we've seen it quite a lot this season, particularly Storm. But moving on to Monday's game, it was, of course, London Pulse versus Strathclyde Sirens. And Luce, you were there in the arena. What was it like?
It was great, actually. I think there was a few, and I don't mean any disrespect to Sirens, but a few surprised faces at the scoreline, I think.
Yeah, it was, of course, 63-53 in favour of London Pulse. And I actually said closer than expected for my 3-word summary for this one. I do think the final scoreline doesn't really reflect how close the margins were in this game throughout. Sirens were actually only down by 5 going into the final quarter. And there was a sense that maybe they could have pulled it back if just a couple of moments had gone their way. Sam Bird actually said afterwards that her side were a bit flat. They weren't disrupting things defensively as much as a unit, I did feel, in this game. Although Fumi had 2 intercepts, 12 deflections, and 8 turnovers on her Todd. So
12 deflections. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. Amazing stuff. And for Sirens, I did think that Dix and Oyella were doing a truckload of work, but the attack was a bit patchy with moments of real slick and sharp play and then just some total brain fades, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting game. I think there's so many different elements that you could pick up on and like digest and analyze from this game.
Yeah, no, it's true. I did think that this round, I mean, maybe it was just because there was fewer games, but obviously we didn't really have a close game that was streamed in this round, and the closest scoreline was 10 goals. Maybe I'm being a bit negative here, but it did feel potentially like a bit of a dud. And I think we are seeing a big disparity between the top teams and the bottom teams in the league, this kind of division. Is this something, do you think, we need to address? And how do you think we go about that? Because, I mean, even over in the ANZ, they've got all these measures in to kind of even out the teams, and they're still getting blowouts. And maybe it's just inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the solution is. And I don't think it's one singular thing. I think there's probably a multitude of different things that need to be addressed. Like, do we have the right number of teams? Like, are we supporting our coaches well enough in terms of upskilling them in their CPD and helping them to be the best coach that they can be? Are those structures in place around it? Do we have the best strength and conditioning programs? Like, there's probably so many things that contribute to this, but we do really need to start getting some of those like closer games, because that's kind of drama is going to attract bigger sponsors to the sport as well. If we're having 20-30 goal blowouts every round, like it's far less attractive for a sponsor to give their money to, for sure.
Yeah, especially if, I mean, I know we were saying that some of the quarters have been really close, but then one particular quarter has just done a team in, basically. And if that happens in the first half of the game, then you almost think the game's kind of been put to bed by half time. And so it is a bit of a shame. And we really want all those close games. And we've actually, just looking at it now, we've only had 5 games so far this season that have been decided by 5 goals or fewer. So that is not great in terms of the number of matches that have been played, but maybe it's just credit to those top teams who are just really pushing on.
Yeah, so 5 games out of what we've had 28 games so far, I believe. So 5 out of 28, that's 17%.
Did you just Google that?
Yes, I did Google that. I will hold my hands up. My maths is not that good. But yeah, I mean, that is quite low, I think, actually.
Yeah, but maybe it is just one of those things that when you've got so many teams, you're obviously naturally going to have teams that really take it away and excel. And we've got an uneven distribution of international players in terms of like roses and all that sort of thing distributed throughout the league. So I don't know. Worth thinking about, though. If you have any thoughts, our lovely listeners, do send them in about how you think we can try and get more close games, or whether you mind. Maybe you just want to see one team playing really good netball and making mincemeat of their opposition. Maybe if you're a fan of that team, then that is all good. You want to see someone spank somebody by 30 goals, then that's fine. But no, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So let us know.
Yes, please do. We honestly would love to hear from you. We can chat netball till the cows come home. But moving on to our game of the round, this week we have gone for Pulse versus Sirens, as there was only 2 to choose from, and this was the closer game. But it was a really interesting one, and there was loads of swings and momentum, and it wasn't until that last quarter that you kind of knew which way it was going to go. And I think that's reflected in the stats as well. It was only really the deflections and the turnovers that were the major differences. Deflections, Pulse had 17, Sirens 10, and turnovers, Pulse 12, Sirens 6. And they were kind of the 2 standouts. Everything else was fairly square. I think Ellie Ratu deservedly got her player of the match award. She played a blinder.
Can I just add that she only came on like just before the end of the second quarter, and she got player of the match. I mean, what a flex.
Like, what an absolute queen. But I think totally deservedly so, because you did notice a distinct difference when she entered the court. And like, what I love about her is her fearlessness when it comes to the feed. Like, she doesn't care whereabouts in the court. She could be on the transverse line by the defensive end, and she'll still feed that ball into Liv Cheen. Like, she is not afraid of having a long feed to her name. And I think she is England's future starting centre. So I would love to see her get more court time, both at Pulse and internationally, although I think she's probably going to have to wait until the new cycle post World Cup. She would be a real wild card to make the World Cup squad now, I think.
Agreed.
But I think for Sirens, the real standout was Beth Dix. Her work rate is absolutely insane. She had the most feeds on court by a significant margin. She had 27 to her name. The next highest on the Sirens team was Robson with just 8.
Wow.
But the next 8, right? Next highest overall was Jade Clark with 22. So she's still like a fair whack above everyone else. And she's clearly that key player for the Siren side. And I think if you want to break down that team, then she is the person you want to be doing your analysis on prior to the game, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Zara Everett sent to the bench, you know. Obviously, Ellie Ratu then came on and played an absolute blinder, but that's great work by Beth Dix, actually. And I did think in this game, there was a lot of talk about Pulse looking to score quick goals. And obviously, they do need to know how to do that. And that is something that all the top teams are really doing very well. But actually, is that the best strategy for them with the players that they have? Because you can't do it all the time, as it becomes a bit predictable. And I think you actually want to focus more on holding on to the ball and keeping possession, no matter how many times you recycle. Because you know that Liz Scholes can recycle back to the transverse line till the cows come home. I'm using that phrase again, but she can, because, you know, she just knows when to do that. And then she can look in every time, and she knows when to execute and when to put that ball in. And actually, I think probably instead of going on, how can we get it down quicker? How can we get it down quicker? I would be looking at how can we keep that patience and really wait for our attack to open up, especially when you've got Berry Neal in there, who's just so speedy.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but I don't know, I'm a little bit on the fence with this one, because obviously the more you play that possession game, the more opportunity there is for your opposition to try and take that ball away. And when you do have that really quick release and you get that ball to goal so quickly, like, they just can't even set up. You can't set up any defense. So like, I can understand wanting to do that, but actually you have to have that blend of both. I don't think you can constantly be looking for that quick route to goal. Like, you have to be able to mix it up, and that's when you become unpredictable. That's when, you know, people don't know what to set up, because they don't know whether you're going in fast or whether you're resetting, or, you know, they don't know where they're going. So that's the blend for me.
Exactly, but I actually don't think they had too much of an issue with giving quick ball in when it was on. But I think what the real issue was is they sort of had in their heads, oh, we've got to give quick ball. So they actually were giving it too quickly because they've got these young players. They are fearless, like you say. I think it's almost better to rein them in rather than let them loose when actually it could then go a bit awry. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I actually think, they had 3 wing attacks posted in this game, which I think is sort of connected to this whole discussion about giving the quick ball. Like, was Chelsea not giving it quick enough? Was Liss giving it too quickly? Was Ashdecker Goldilocks? Like, I don't know. It's really interesting.
Yeah, but you are totally right. They've got to have a wealth of weapons in the arsenal and not always just be a one-trick pony, I guess.
Yeah, and I think they do. Like, look at their squad. Like, geez. Yeah. But it's just about finding that balance on court, I guess.
No, yeah, for sure. And the defense are going to win the ball. So it's about holding on to that as well. And actually, sometimes on the turnover, you don't want to try and give it too quickly because you might waste it.
Yeah.
And it's so valuable.
That's that moment when you're in the most danger of losing possession is right after you've gained it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because everyone gets a rush of blood to the head and throws it away like I do.
Oh my God, same. Honestly, my personal turnover to goal rate is terrible. It's probably like 3%.
Right, the struggle is real. Very relatable.
Anyway, moving on to our player of the round. This week it was Sophie Drakeford-Lewis. Yes. She had some absolutely banging stats in this Bath game. 16 from 19 goals, 23 feeds, which was the most on court by a long way. Not to mention a rebound, 3 deflections, and 2 turnovers. Amazing. She was obviously coming up against her old side. And I think you could tell from the post-match interview that this game was really big for her. She was a bit emotional, actually. And she just shone in this game and really stood up to the challenge mentally of coming up against, the team where you started your career and arguably where she was made as a goal attack and owned that starting bib. We also saw some of her at wing attack in this game, which I think is a really good option for Storm if they need to turn to something new in kind of big games and things like that. And obviously, realistically, if Sophie wants more court time at international level, she's got to offer that wing attack option as well. She is unlikely to be the starting goal attack for England in the near future, given your Housebys, Cardwells, etc. And with some of the tall timbers coming up, like Emma Thacker, Berry Neal, as well in that goal attack position, I really think wing attack could be the way for her to carve out that niche and offer something really unique and different. But yeah, overall, great performance from her. Sometimes she was actually running so fast, she was a blur on the screen. You could not even catch her. And I think she's become a lot more purposeful with when she chooses to drive and cut or when she exits from the circle and then does those little pops. She's much more structured and I think she's really shining.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's been one of my biggest critiques of her in seasons gone past, is that sometimes she just seems to be running without a purpose. And we know that she's like a real engine. She's got all that energy in her, but like sometimes you just need to stop. Like you just need to take a breath and chill. And I think she's starting to really strike that balance now. But do you not think she's going to be England's starting goal attack anytime soon?
No, I think the height's too much of an issue. I know she's not the smallest, but it's so difficult when you have 2 tall timbers in goal attack and goal shooter. And I think that's what's worked with us really well with H2. And that's what's really well with Ellie Cardwell and Houseby, all of those other internationals that we're seeing as well, that the height is just going up and up and up for the goal attack position. And so I think you're better to put her in wing attack where she can just run the legs off anyone. And actually she still uses the accuracy because she just puts her accuracy into the feed instead of into the shot. So it's a match made in heaven in my view.
Yeah, we've got that wing attack hole currently post Nat Metcalf. So yeah, she really could kind of take ownership of that. And because I think as well internationally, I think she sometimes has a little bit of a fear of going to goal and she like tries to get a little bit closer when actually it's within her range. But like you say, wing attack could be the one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, imagine a front line of potentially Ratu, SDL, Thacker, Neil. Or Neil Thacker the other way around. It's pretty good, isn't it? It's looking pretty spicy.
Yeah, let us know what you think, guys. SDL, wing attack, goal attack, what do you prefer? Get in touch.
Coming up after the break, we chat to England Roses team manager Paul Dring. Don't go anywhere. I don't know about you, Luce, but it gets to this point in the season and all I'm thinking about is getting new trainers. You know, when you're just eyeing them up all the way through, I'm feeling it.
Yeah, I love a bit of new stash, but I'm that type of person. I'll put all of these things into my basket, spend hours and hours looking around, but then I'll never actually go through with it. It just sits in my basket forevermore.
It's so true. I know, honestly, can relate. But luckily, Lovell Netball are offering a 15% discount on all first-time orders with code NETPOD15 at lovellnetball.co.uk. So you're sorted.
Yeah, and honestly, Lovell Netball is the place to go. Whatever you want, they've got absolutely everything.
Everything. Such a good range. Yeah.
So whether you're looking for trainers, you're looking for bibs, you're looking for supports, whatever you need.
Sports bras, all of that stuff.
Sports bras, exactly. They have got you covered. So don't forget, that's a 15% discount off all first-time orders with the code NETPOD15 at lovellnetball.co.uk.
Love a bit of Lovell. Oh my God.
Love a bit of Lovell.
Love a bit of Lovell. Happy shopping, guys.
We are absolutely thrilled to welcome onto the pod one of the familiar faces, but who people might not know the name of. We've got Paul Dring on the pod. How are you doing, Paul?
Hi, Lucy. Hi, Lucy. Yeah, great. It's really excited to be here, actually. A little bit surprised, but also really excited. So thanks for having me on.
No, gosh, don't be surprised. I think you're a really fascinating person to have on a podcast or any kind of topic, because you are, like I said, you are one of those faces that everyone sees all the time on the coaching bench, you know, next to Jess Thirlby, but people might not actually know who you are, what it is that you do. So I think it's nice to be able to uncover some of those hidden gems and the people behind the scenes without whom things would just crumble, I'm assuming.
You're like netball's Batman. Going under the radar,
well,
you know, sorting everything out for everyone and just making it happen.
Netball's Batman. I love that. Actually, it's really interesting you say that, because when was it, season open a few weeks ago, I was kind of sat there in the crowd and a lady actually came up to me and said, I see you all the time on telly, but I don't actually know what you do. What is it you do? And I kind of just tried to explain it. And she kept saying to me, people need to tell your story a little bit, because no one actually knows what you do. I thought,
there you are.
I don't know if that's good or bad. But and then she said, after speaking for a little while, she said, it's really nice to meet you, Martin, and then left. So, so that was good. So I made a lasting impression there.
Oh, that is hilarious. Yeah, making a great first impression there, for well done.
Yeah. So if that's anything to go on, then the listeners are in for a treat today.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's really great to have you, Martin, honestly.
Yeah, thanks for giving up your time today. Well, for anyone who doesn't know, you are, of course, the performance operations manager for England Netball. And within that, your kind of self-made title, as you told us before we started recording, of the Vitality Roses team manager. Because obviously people know what a team manager is, and they might not know what a performance operations manager is. And you've had this role since 2016. You've supported the team on numerous home and away tours, including the Netball World Cup in 2019 and more recently Commonwealth Games in 2022. So give us some insight into the key duties of a team manager in netball and sort of what your day-to-day includes.
Yeah, where do I start? I suppose the way I look at the role is that my role is very much there to facilitate what the head coach wants, I suppose. So that's a very simple way of looking at it. But in terms of if we look at our performance calendar for the year, then we'll kind of, that's where our starting point is, and we'll get an idea of where our games are going to be played after a test series or a World Cup, whatever. So working back from that, we fill our camps into the gaps that we can, or where we can fit the camps in. And it's my job really to go away and kind of just make that happen, I suppose, and in terms of all of the logistics and the bookings and all that kind of stuff behind the scenes that you don't really ever notice, but kind of has to happen. So yeah, anything from, I suppose, booking all the flights, booking all the accommodation, kit as well. That's quite a big thing. So we don't have the luxury of having a kit man or anything like that, or kit lady. So we kind of have to deal with all that ourselves as a team manager. I'm fortunate that I'm full time. I mean, I know a lot of the obviously Super League team managers probably just come in on match day a lot of the time, or they work in a kind of voluntary role. I am in a full time position, but then given the amount of touring and what we do and the amount of time we're away, that probably would make sense. But I think it's something like 28 tours or something like that I've done now, which means I should know what I'm doing a little bit by now. Obviously, I still make mistakes and still get it all wrong. But no, I mean, it's exactly all that stuff, really. And I think probably bigger than that is helping to create and promote the right environment that we need on our tours. So, obviously I've got to know now what works for us through trial and error, really. I mean, I was thinking about this actually, looking back, like when I first started, so back in 2016, the very first quad series was my first tour. That was like week 2 in the job. And probably what it looks like now is very different to what it looks like then. But to me, I can't see huge differences, but there's probably been little tweaks all the way along the way that have kind of changed that environment and hopefully made it, well, I'd like to think made it better and more conducive to high performance, really. I suppose another way of looking at it is when we get into a meeting and we start talking bigger picture stuff, I'm sort of there and Jessie's always saying to me, no, Paul, I'm not going to tell you what time we're going to have lunch on Wednesday, the 14th of July. So that's the sort of stuff I need to know because I need to get that booked in, whereas everyone else is thinking about the more high performance stuff sometimes. So probably not always that helpful, but that's the kind of stuff I need to know and need to get booked in and make happen behind the scenes, I guess.
But that's great though, because without someone like that, sort of like to keep you to task and to get everything on, like this is Lucy's dream job, Lucy P's dream job. She's organizational queen, but without someone like that, things just fall to pot. So it's absolutely pivotal, and all of that kind of stuff, the sort of unglamorous stuff, if you will, it really goes kind of unrewarded sometimes, but it absolutely contributes to that kind of high performance environment, making sure things are where they need to be, people are where they need to be, and without it, it kind of would all crumble. But you mentioned there, obviously when you first started, it was 2016, and back in that year it was under Tracy Lovell who was head coach, and obviously now we've got Jess Thirlby in post, so you've also had to adjust to 2 different head coaches, their kind of the environment that they want to bring in and their different behaviours and attitudes. What can you take us back to that very beginning, the early days under Tracy Neville, and kind of give us a sense of what the Roses environment was like then and sort of how it's changed now?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think so. I started in July of 2016. I think the full-time program had been running. I didn't. So I came in August. The full-time program had been running about 3 weeks. So they've had literally the first couple of weeks of the program, and then I came in. It was very much like trying to work out what a schedule was, what our daily schedule would be like, and what was a norm, and where we'd have meetings, and where we trained best, and all those kind of things. And I think definitely we changed things a lot at the beginning, and Tracy would be first to say that herself. Like our schedules weren't really set in stone. We'd plan them out, and then we'd be changing them on a daily basis. And I was forever chasing my tail, trying to get court bookings moved and moving meetings and moving things all the time, because we'd flip our days around quite regularly, because we were kind of learning what worked for the athletes as well, I suppose, whether they do weight training in the morning or court in the afternoon, or sometimes flip that around, and what sort of time of day would be best to train. And we were making a lot of changes. And I think as we went through, towards the end of Tracy's tenure, it was pretty much very, very much set in stone in terms of what we would do. And very much actually under Jess as well. I think we've kind of followed it on. I don't think Jess came in and made dramatic changes to that kind of training plan and schedule. Yes, we've tweaked a few things, and we've had different other staff as well. Our S&C coach, Katie, has a lot to do with kind of where things fit best. But no, I think it's been very much led by what works for this group of athletes. And if you look at the team, I mean, it's kind of, there's still quite a lot of players that are still around that were around in 2016. And so the backbone of that team, I guess, is quite familiar. So the new girls that have come in have kind of almost adapted to that environment, and we have changed a few bits and pieces, but it's been I'd say it's been quite, hasn't changed huge amounts. No.
I mean, that's great to have that level of consistency, that regardless of who the head coach is, obviously there's changes there, and that can be, sometimes quite difficult to for athletes to sort of take on board and be able to bring into their kind of training. But to have that level of consistency and to have someone like you there who's that present figure throughout, and the elder girls as well, like that's really cool. And I think that helps to bring the younger players in. And obviously in your role, there's been some incredible success and there's been some losses on court as well. And I imagine that I've seen the pictures of you on the sideline, like you ride every moment of the game exactly the same as the coaching team do. So how do you go about supporting the players and the coaching staff after a difficult loss, like take Com Games, for example, whilst also, I imagine, feeling the pain of losing yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, that's the reality of high performance sport. It is tough at times. It's amazing other times, but yeah, you kind of you're so invested in it that you literally feel as much as you try to not be invested, you can't be. You're part of that, and you want to see the girls do well for them as much as anything. And I think realistically for me, I've seen that absolute high. So you know what that's like to experience. So you want everyone to experience that. So when another group of athletes and staff are on the verge of that and they don't quite get there, then you do feel for everybody, and it's tough. I think probably like 2019 in particular, the semi-final loss in that World Cup was tough. I don't think there's any point in that journey that we ever thought we weren't going to win that competition, and that wasn't being arrogant. I just think that we went through the same process we did in 2018, and it just didn't go away in the final, in that semi-final towards the end. And I still look back on it. High performance sport is I'm quite a realist as well. That high performance sport is, 1 minute you can win a semi-final by a goal, you can win a final by a goal, you can lose a semi-final by 2 goals. The reality is that's where we're at now. That's what high performance sport is, and you're not going to win every game. There's going to be times when you do get over the line, there's times when you don't, and it's nice that we're in that position, really, that we're knocking on the door and we've got that chance. But occasionally, it's not going to go your way. And I suppose immediately after the game, I've kind of got a function to get on with. So the immediate thing for me is the media want a piece of everything. So it's kind of how you deal with that. And some players might not be in the right frame of mind to speak to the media immediately, and so it's kind of looking at what I can do best to support the team in those moments. It is tough, but you've just got to get on with your job, I suppose. I remember in particular that was hard. We were getting a lot of demands and requests for people to speak, and people just didn't necessarily feel quite ready for that yet. So we had to kind of delay things a little bit, maybe, and find the right time for people to reflect and talk about the game. But I suppose, as much as you say, I feel every emotion. I also think I'm quite level before and after a game in terms of the way I am around the group. So I try not to show that too much in front of the girls, so that it's very much a controlled environment, I suppose, and I'm offering that level of support afterwards, as much as anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting, because obviously I think the fundamentals of your role, the things that people would assume are part of your role, are very practical, sorting the logistics, the kit, as you mentioned, nutrition, liaising with competition managers, etc., and generally just making sure that the players have everything they need for everything to run smoothly. But we're sort of wondering whether there is that kind of holistic element to your role. Like, can you tell us a bit about that? Do you have that kind of almost like welfare, well-being, holistic care kind of position in the team?
Well, I think we all do. I think everybody has that role in the team. We've all got different relationships within the staff group, within the athlete group. There's certain players that you've got a natural bond with, and other players that because you've known them for so long or whatever. So I think there's certain people that you will always naturally be able to support better than others, and I think that goes throughout the whole team. I think we all put our arms around each other in those moments, really, and support each other. I don't think there's anything that you do consciously. I just think that's just how we're at. I think we are genuinely one big family. That's exactly how we are, and that's exactly you hear the players talk about it, but it's the reality. You spend so much time with this group that you do become a big family. So naturally, you feel everything. Every disappointment with them, with all of us, and so we're all kind of look out for each other. Really, I'd say is the best way that goes.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the team aspect of your team manager job title, if you know what I mean. That's the real emphasis, is being part of that group and that collective. Whether you're on the court or off the court, you are in the Roses environment, and you're pivotal to that success, and you're riding the highs and lows as well, as Lucy said. But obviously, you've been in and around the Roses environment since 2016, and in amongst all those highs and lows and the pressure and the tours and the World Cups and Commonwealth Games, we can probably imagine that there have been some hilarious moments. So now is your time to spill all of the stories. What is your funniest memory of the Roses team in your time?
Oh dear, funniest. I mean, I would argue some of them, you look back on and you could say they're quite funny, but at the time they probably weren't that funny.
Then we want to hear them, Paul.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, particularly in my role, I mean, I always say, like, you're kind of 5 minutes from disaster in my job, like, all the time. That's kind of where you have to be comfortable living, because you've generally got to fix these problems. But I mean, there's some funny characters in the team that have tested me over the years, and I'm not going to name any names, but I mean, you can probably guess. But I mean, Commonwealth Games, one athlete in particular, one day forgot a dress, which I thought was quite important. But then 2 days, which is one thing, but then 2 days later, like, literally came out of the changing rooms and said to me, what, about an hour before the game was going to start, Paul, I haven't got my trainers.
Oh, I think I know who this is.
Wow. Okay. So it's like 25 minutes, like, round trip. Well, sorry, each way back to the hotel. So, yeah, you've got to kind of solution that quite quickly so that they're on court and ready to go. But also, you kind of also in your mind trying to manage that. How much do I need to tell the coaches about this? Because I don't want them to be stressing over this as well. So maybe we can just try and get this sorted, and then no one will know. So yeah, there's always things like that. You look back on them, they're quite funny, but at the time it was challenging. By the way, we fixed it. And I mean, in that particular case, again, I don't think anyone ever knew, because literally they finished the huddle. I think literally came straight from the huddle, put trainers on, and went straight out onto court. And it literally happened in that minute. I mean, I was running around back of house, grabbing stuff. Yeah, our performance director had gone back to the hotel in a cab, and I'd rung the village, and they got someone to bring the trainers out. And you kind of find ways of getting around these things. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of funny moments. We've got a great environment that's about fun, really, and I think I'm very much led by the girls, that they want to enjoy what they're doing, and wherever we can, we try and have a little bit of fun. I mean, Bert brings a bit of fun to the table as well, and there's always a few laughs when he's around, and generally there's always a few laughs when I'm around, normally at my expense as well. So probably most of the funny stuff is stuff they've done to me. I remember actually on the recent tour, they got quite a lot of enjoyment out of putting a fake spider in the bibs, and I went off to the toilet. I think I came back and started folding the bibs. So we're out in Australia, obviously. I got back 3 bibs down, and there's this big plastic spider that I'm not going to mention any names. Joe Harton had been left there, and I didn't even know they'd set up a camera to record it all and film it all in front of me and everything. Like, I didn't even have completely oblivious, but obviously I've dialed that one out pretty well. So that didn't make it onto the WhatsApp group or anything. But no, there's a lot of stuff like that. There's just lots of little fun things that are probably quite personal to the group as well. But we have a lot of fun, and yeah, some little banter and bits of laughter on WhatsApp. Normally something that I've done or not done, probably not done, that's led to something funny.
Yeah, I know. I love that. And 2 things kind of stand out for me there. And the first one is the image of you as like this sort of swan, like everything's going fine, gliding along, and then under the water, the feet are going at 100 miles an hour because somebody's forgotten their dress or their bibs or the taxi's late or all of those other things going on. But kind of on the surface of it, the whole ship kind of running smoothly. I just think that's hilarious. And the other thing is just the kind of banter between the group and all of that stuff. It just makes me think I would love a Netflix documentary following the Roses. Mm-hmm. I think it would be absolute like quality television and entertainment value. Would you be in for something like that if the opportunity arose?
I think we've actually talked about that a couple of times with our comms team about, and I think it would be actually quite interesting. I mean, I love watching all those things for other shows, and all the other sports I follow. So it's always fascinating to see. Yeah, it's probably the best way of picking up those little interactions and things that you kind of happen organically, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, exactly like you say. I mean, that kind of swan analogy is quite true, I suppose, of this role. And people say that to me all the time, but I think what's quite good is, I mean, literally the legs are running around madly under the water, but quite often people don't know. And I do get a lot of comments from the girls that I'm quite calm and always very calm on match days and around them. And I find that quite amazing to believe, because I don't always feel like that, I have to say, and think that there's things happening. So if I'm not showing that, then I must be doing something right, I guess, in that area.
No, I think so. And I think one of the other things I was just thinking of there is, the kind of sense of all the, the joking and the laughter and all that banter on court. It does actually benefit the game on court, because when the girls are relaxed and enjoying themselves and having fun and playing well together, that's when you do tend to get those performances, kind of at the other side. So, I love that. And we were just wondering as well, out of all the coaches and assistant coaches that you've worked with, who's got the best banter?
Oh, I'd have to say Jess, actually. Jess.
I knew you were going to say Jess.
That's really tough because, I can't believe you put me on the spot there. There's been lots in different ways, but yeah, for some reason, I'll tell you one thing though. Sonia really gets my joking sometimes. Like I quite like that. Like she laughs at my jokes that not everyone else does. Quite often, most people try not to encourage it, whereas Sonia does kind of laugh along sometimes, and everyone then sort of gets angry with Sonia for encouraging me. But I think in particular, yeah, Jess and I have got a kind of relationship where we kind of get each other, and I think that's quite, yeah, we sort of bounce off each other quite a lot and quite easily. And I suppose that's quite helpful on match days and things when you kind of need to calm things down a little bit. I mean, Tracy was the same, to be honest. I know she would always, if she wanted to calm herself down before a match, she'd start asking me questions, normally about my dating life or something like that. That was always something that used to bring a lot of entertainment to her.
I was going to say, would that give her a laugh, would it?
Yeah, generally, she always used to say that was like the best way of calming her down before a game, because like big match and she's quite nervous, and just start talking to me about some disaster that I've had there, and then that normally is enough to calm her down. But I think I like to think we've had a good relationship with all of them. I mean, Tanya was good value as well as an assistant coach, and used to have a lot of laughs at Tanya's expense. I mean, actually, one thing that was quite funny, she got me back a bit of karma once. We were out in Jamaica, and we were at one of the training sessions, and one of the chairs she was sat on broke, and she sort of fell on her back and in training, and I could not stop laughing. I mean, I was literally just, it was hilarious. But then, I don't know if you remember the game, but I think it was streamed, but people didn't really see it. But was it the first and the second game? It might have been the second game. We got, myself and Snowy, our physio, got taken out by Kadeen and Shamira. They ran off court, and literally they don't have advertising hoardings like we do, and it was like a little hurdle. They jumped over that and they just completely took the two of us out. So we were laying on the floor in these plastic white chairs, and all I can remember is looking up and Tanya absolutely sort of laughing her face off at me, and it was just kind of like, yeah, I guess I deserved that, because I've done the same to you a couple of days before. So karma has a funny way of getting you back, but that was a funny moment, actually. But yeah, no, I think that's an important part for all of us, is that we it's lighthearted and we enjoy what we do. I mean, we work hard, but also sometimes you've got to bring yourself down from those moments, because it is high pressure, and have a bit of a laugh. It's quite important.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely crucial to any kind of really comfortable environment. You need to feel comfortable with people. And I think even that, being able to have a laugh at yourself and, everyone else laughing at your expense, being able to be that person, I think is a really important role. And it might sound really silly or trivial, but I actually think that's really, really important.
No, I mean, I agree. I know that I sort of end up playing that role a little bit, and I'm not playing on that role, but just playing that role. It just kind of falls that way. But I suppose, if I can do that and it can help, then of course that's great, and I enjoy it, and I give it out as much as I get it as well. So, and the girls will tell you that. It's all part of the job.
And obviously you work day in, day out with an amazing group of women. I'd say as well, the staffing levels at England Netball are predominantly female. So you're one of just a handful of men who work for England Netball in a very female dominated environment in a predominantly female sport. In terms of that gender imbalance, we know that you've come from cycling previously. What key differences have you noticed between your previous jobs and current jobs in that respect?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's something that I made some very quick observations, actually. So yeah, if you don't know, I worked as the coach for the Great Britain paracycling team for 18 months or so, and in that role I was working with kind of a mixed male female disabled athletes, and I don't know whether that's a cycling thing as well, but it was quite evident that if I told people stuff, they kind of just got on with it and did it. When I came into netball, and one of the key things I've observed is that when you're working with predominantly a group of female athletes, you kind of have to explain why, otherwise they won't do it, and which is understandable and fair, I suppose. But I kind of learned that to begin with. So I was just kind of saying, right, we need to do this, and then I'd just get a lot of questions back as to why do we need to do that, why can't we do this, or why can't we do the other thing. And what I realised is actually the best way to get anything now is to kind of explain why, and add that little bit of information. And interesting enough, I think it was Phil Neville that had said something very similar. It was one of his observations when he went to work with the Lionesses. I think he said something very similar, that he had to provide a lot more information as to why they needed to do things. And it was his observation moving from men's football into women's football. And I definitely think that's one of the things to get more buy-in. Like the way I work has probably changed quite a bit now, and that I'd like to think quite prescriptive in stuff that I ask, rather than just saying, can you do this for me, or can you go and get that, or can you fill this form in? There's a lot more information around why they need to do that, and then generally you get buy-in straight away. So I suppose that's one key thing I've learned.
I think that's fascinating, and like your experience in the different environments of having that sort of very, I would imagine, male dominated a little bit in cycling rather than 50,
probably,
and then going into a really, really female dominated environment, and that being kind of your key takeaway of the differences. I think that's really interesting. It just kind of speaks to how like the female mind works, I guess. I don't know about you, Luce, I find that fascinating, like just the differences between men and women.
I'd say that's the practical difference I noticed, and I definitely had to change the way I work. That's probably the only thing I would say that I've made a conscious effort to change. I guess I must be different in the way I work, because it's bound to evolve that way, because I will have found little ways of communicating or doing things that will work better. But I think as a conscious thing, I think that's something that I did make a conscious effort to change it to begin with, because I just felt like I asked something, I get bombarded with a load of questions. So I then found if I put a lot more information around it, I didn't get the same amount of questions back. And that was definitely noticeable as a difference coming from, working with more male athletes, I suppose.
Speaking of that kind of differences and comparisons, obviously netball's only a semi-professional sport, and due to the kind of nature of the game and where we are at in terms of our global development, we know that budgets are often pretty tight. And if we look at sort of different sports, we know that netball players will always have to share a room when they go to like big competitions like World Cup, Com Games. But I would be very, very surprised, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, if you're listening, if the likes of England rugby or England football, like if they had to share rooms when they were going on big competitions. So how much of a challenge is it to kind of manage an elite sports team with limited resources? And what kind of creative solutions do you come up with to try and get the best outcome for the athletes?
Yeah, I think that's interesting as well, because it isn't always a budget thing. I know in other sports that definitely in cycling that they share rooms as well, and that's obviously quite a well-funded program. Cricket as well, for example. I know it might not be the case now, but I do know in the past you quite often hear about them talk about who they room with and their roommates and stuff. So I know it isn't always just purely down to budget. I think sometimes it's about leaving athletes in their rooms on their own all the time can be a bit, for their own well-being, it's actually quite good to have someone with them, and to sort of be able to come away from a training session, have someone to talk to. And because some athletes naturally would kind of hide away on their own, whereas if you put them in a room, then they're going to have someone there to be company and to talk to. So yeah, in an ideal world, sometimes it would be nice to have single rooms, and I know the athletes do prefer that. Not all of them, but majority, I would say, would probably prefer that. So yeah, we need to be creative, I suppose. I think a great example is that we fly economy. So even if we're going to the other side of the world, down to Australia, then you think we'd fly business class, but the difference in price between business and economy for a group of 25 people is ridiculous. And we just don't have the budget for that. It's that simple. So it does mean that when we get there, everyone's a little bit sluggish probably for a couple of days because they haven't slept very well on the flight, or they've been cramped up or whatever. So we do have to go through. We go through like a 4-day flight plan when we land. I think most teams would do that anyway, but it probably doesn't help us that we have to allow a bit more time for that recovery from the flights and things that we couldn't just get off the plane and go and compete like maybe other sports could do. So yeah, I guess we have to be creative and understand that, and understand the limitations that we've got, I suppose. Obviously, if we had more budget, the first thing we'd probably want is more resource around athletes. I think that's one of the things that we would change. I mean, we'd have more soft tissue and more physio support and those kind of things, and more around them. But we don't have the luxury to do that. So we are kind of relying on, I guess, a limited staff team and having to work double hard. It's probably a fair way of looking at it when you compare to other sports. I mean, that's a great example. So I know from meeting up with the Lionesses that they might take 23 athletes on tour, but they might have 24 staff. So that creates its own problems. But I always joke with David and Jess that if I was in football, I'd have kit men and I'd have media people with me all the time. I'd have what else? Yeah, like a transport person, a nutritionist, someone dealing with all those other bits and pieces. So all of that kind of gets absorbed in my role. And likewise, you have one physio instead of two physios. So they've got to deal with more athletes and you've got less time. So there's all those kind of constraints that we have to work with. And I think we do a great job given the constraints that we have. But of course, if we had more money, then I'm sure we'd throw a bit more resource at it. But we just don't have that luxury. I'd like to think that we do pretty well in that space, really, given the resource that we do have.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I think the flight thing's actually really interesting because not only is it having to fly economy, but like it's economy with 25 very, very tall women. So you can't have that extra leg room. Like it's little things like that your average Joe just might not think about when it comes to like performance and the end result of a particular tour. If it doesn't sort of go your way, like all these things that can impact it. And we know, obviously, you've been with them for 2016. You've got so much experience under your belt now. And I could probably guess what the answer is to this question. But what has been your best moment so far as team manager for the Vitality Roses?
I mean, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to look past that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, 2018, obviously, that was. I mean, the one thing I would say, I mean, it wasn't just the best moment of the job. It was the best moment of my life. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, who gets to be involved in a moment like that when we made history and to win? Yeah, it's beyond your it literally is beyond your wildest dreams, and it's incredible. I mean, I still look back and every time it just makes me smile. So yeah, I was incredibly privileged, incredibly honoured, incredibly lucky to be involved in that, and just to see what it meant to the team, what it meant to the girls, and it just made me incredibly proud. And the reaction from that, when we got home, I don't think we realised quite what we'd achieved, and then when we got home and to see the reaction that it had for I'm going to use that cliche that everyone talks about, living in that bubble, because you literally are living in a bubble and you don't know what's going on. It was only really evident, I think, when we got on the plane on the way home. I think we got to pretty much Abu Dhabi airport, and I was starting to get lots of messages through about all the requests for the girls to go on various media all week, like BBC Breakfast and Question of Sport and invites to the BAFTAs and all this kind of stuff coming through. And it was like, whoa, this is like a different world. And maybe this has sort of captured the imagination of the British public. And then when we got back and then saw that what it had done to the sport and the amount of people that had started playing netball as a result of that, it makes you realise, what you do it for and why you do it. I mean, it's one good thing, one thing sort of working in this high performance bubble and environment, but you don't realise quite the impact that has on the sport at the grassroots level. And to see that was just absolutely incredible. And yeah, so to be part of something like that, yeah, I mean, it's without doubt the best moment of my life. And I can say that I don't have kids, so I can get away with saying it. So, but yeah, then we came home, and then we get invited to Spotty, and then go and win Team of the Year and greatest sporting moment of 2018. I mean, for a sports fan, like foremost, that's kind of what I am. To be involved in something like that, to actually have that moment was, that was equally good for me. To be recognised as a team that's had that much of an impact, it was phenomenal. So
it was phenomenal. It was history making. It completely changed netball world order. Like it was absolutely, and I can't even imagine kind of what it feels like to have played a part in that and to actually be there in person and to be a part of such an incredible, momentous history-making occasion. But then on the flip side of the great stuff comes the not so great stuff. So talk to us a little bit about your worst moments so far in your team manager role.
See, I'm the eternal optimist, so I don't like to dwell on the negatives. But I think, yeah, definitely it would have to be the two semi-final losses in 2019 and 2022, the World Cup and the Commonwealth Games. Obviously, being at home as well. As I said before, like the slimmest of margins, really. And I think both games, in my opinion, could go either way. That it just didn't work out our way on the day, and it's always tough. I think in particular, in 2019, I went through that whole tournament kind of thinking we were just following the same process we'd done in 2018, and actually I couldn't see anything else other than us having a really successful tournament. I don't know. I say it's not being arrogant. It's just that we'd gone through the same processes and we just followed everything, and everything felt like we were going in the right direction. And even in that semi-final, it probably was only about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to go in the game that I probably realised that we weren't going to win the game. And at that point, I did actually question whether I could still do the job. You know, there was a point at which I just kind of went, I don't know if I can put myself through this. This is like the lowest of the low, and would I want to keep doing this if and put myself through this again? So it is tough, but obviously losing one makes you kind of understand, because I'd only kind of really experienced the winning, I suppose, before that. So having lost that one, I kind of saw both sides of it, and and again in 2022, yeah, it was devastating. Yeah, there's no doubt about that for all of us. We really believed going into that tournament that we had every chance of making the final and retaining our gold medal. It's great that we can go into these tournaments thinking that. I think that's the key thing for me, is that we weren't, when I started in the job, we were losing by 25 goals every game to New Zealand and Australia, and didn't even feel like we were in the games. Like, to the point now where we feel like we're in every game with anyone we play, and any team can beat any team on any day. So as I say, I'm quite realistic about it. I mean, yeah, we were devastated, we were all disappointed, but ultimately, for me, that's sport, that's elite sport, and you just have to kind of get your head around that and just accept that some days it goes your way and other days it doesn't. And you know, you look across to other sports, that's kind of what happens in most sports. You know, I mean, I remember Johnny Wilkinson kicking that drop goal to win the Rugby World Cup for England. That was a great moment, but we haven't been able to go back and repeat that since then. And there's not many teams that have. You know, we knew that going in, that it was realistically, we thought we could do it, but the reality is, which English sports team has actually won something and then 4 years later gone back and won it again? It's really hard to do. You know, it's not a given, and it's not something that's easy. So we gave absolutely everything we could, and unfortunately it didn't work out our way. So yeah, once you come down off the kind of disappointment, then you kind of have to be realistic about it, and then it spurs you on, and you just kind of do everything you can, come into the next camp and work hard for the next one.
Yeah, and actually, I really like that, because it's almost as though, but every one of those instances where it doesn't work out is fuel for the next training session and the next time you take the court, and for you being in that environment as well, riding those highs and lows. It all makes it worth it in the end when the success does come. And you know, you've said as well, you're an optimistic guy. You like to look on the positive side, and I think what an amazing presence to have in the team, you know, someone who's been there on those ups and downs in that journey, and then knows that, you know, they can always have a bit of a glass half full attitude towards things. So I really like that. And you get another go this year, World Cup in Cape Town. What are your expectations for the World Cup this year?
You're asking the wrong person that, really, I suppose. It's not. We're not going to lie, that we feel like we've got every chance of winning it. We feel like that when you go into every game. I mean, as I say, if you look at the top teams now, I think any team can beat any team on its day, and you just need to have the right game at the right day. So I think the aspirations, if you ask any one of us, of course we want to go there and win the tournament. We know we can win. We know we can win these major tournaments. We've done it before. So why can't we do it again? So yeah, we'll give it our best shot, and we're doing absolutely everything we can to try and make that happen. And but I think, you know, most of all, for me, what I've realised is that, you know, entertaining people is really important, and giving hope to the nation. You know, even watching the England football team. I mean, I've been there for a long time now, supporting England, and I've had every hope going into every major tournament. But even if we don't win it, just having some fun along the way and enjoying just the way it brings the country together, and if we can play a part in that, then that's really important as well. So of course, and if we can inspire people to play the game and more people to be interested in netball, then massive. But yeah, of course, we're in a high performance environment. We want to try and win every game. That's what we're about. So yeah, we're doing everything we can, and we'll see what happens in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, what a lovely note to end on. I mean, we will see you courtside. We're going to be in Cape Town for the World Cup, so we will see you there. We'll be rooting for you. So all the very best of luck, and thank you so much for coming on today, Paul. It's been great to chat to you, or Martin, should I say?
yeah. Thanks for having me. I'd say it's really quite nice to someone actually interested in what a team manager does. So thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Qtr Time podcast. We cannot wait to bring you even more netball chat and another super special guest next week.
Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media at Qtr Time Pod for the latest netball updates. Get involved in the conversation online by letting us know what you thought of the matches this weekend and which players have stood out for you.
It's also the SSN starting this weekend. Woohoo! So next weekend, we will be, of course, wrapping up the first round with a super special guest. So do tune in for that. We'd also really appreciate if you could take a moment to rate and review, as it really helps other people to find the podcast. If you enjoy listening to the pod, please let us know. Do spread the word with all your netball pals so even more people can get involved. Don't forget as well to take advantage of our exclusive discount with Lovell Netball by entering the code NETPOD15 at the checkout at lovellnetball.co.uk.
And finally, before we let you go, this Friday, just rattling on for ages, this Friday we are taking part in the Great British Spring Clean. So we're going to be picking up our bags.
Say that quickly, Luce. Say that quickly.
Great British
Spring Clean. Great British Spring Clean. Carry on.
Yeah. So I hope you can join us. Go grab your bags, grab your little picky things. What are they called?
Litter picker, Luce.
Is that actually their name?
Yeah.
Okay, well, grab your litter pickers, grab your bags,
I wish you
and your
could all
gloves.
see Lucy's doing like a litter picker thing with her finger. That is hilarious.
Let's go pick some litter and do good for the environment.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for that. I actually love a litter pick, me. So does my mum as well, who listens to the podcast. Shout out.
Mate, you would not believe some of the stuff that I've pulled out of some lakes before. Okay, I'm just going on a tangent now. We once pulled out a jar with a snake in it.
Alive
I
or
kid
dead?
you not. Oh, dead, obviously.
Oh, okay.
It's a snake in a jar. And we also had a marigold glove that was filled with concrete in a lake where we used to live. Mate, honestly, we've picked out the weirdest stuff. So yeah, get involved. You never know what you find.
That was probably like a poor little fisher's art project that you've just ruined.
Oh well.
Oh dear. Anyway, I think we better wrap up the episode.
Yeah, let's go.
Thanks everyone for listening. Take care and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.